The fire came first, low and hungry, crawling through the grass like an animal that had learned the shape of hate. It whispered before it roared. By the time the widow stepped out onto her porch, the night had already decided what it wanted from her. If you love powerful stories where the quiet ones turn out to be the most dangerous, subscribe to our channel now and share this story with your friends, because legends like this are meant to be remembered, not buried. The ranch sat alone against the black spine of the mountains, a scatter of buildings pressed flat by years of wind and grief. The widow stood still, barefoot on old wood, her hair loose down her back, eyes reflecting orange. She did not shout. She did not run. She watched the flames take the barn first, then the corral fence, then the feed shed where her husband had once laughed while tossing grain like blessings. Sparks lifted into the sky like fleeing souls. The bandits came riding through the smoke as if born from it. 5 of them, maybe 6. Horses snorting, men laughing. They wore scarves over their mouths and confidence over their hearts. To them, this was just another forgotten ranch, another woman alone, another easy night's work. They did not know her name, they did not know her past. And they did not know that the scar running pale along her left forearm was earned the day she killed a mountain lion with nothing but a knife and her own refusal to die. She stepped down from the porch and walked toward them. One of the men laughed. "Look at that," he said, voice thick with smoke and cruelty. "Widow come out to beg already." Another spat into the dirt. "Should have stayed inside. Fire's kinder than we are." She stopped 10 paces away. The heat kissed her skin. Familiar, almost comforting. Fire was honest. Men like this were not. "My husband built this place," she said, her voice calm, steady, carrying through the crackle of burning wood. "You're standing on his bones." The laughter grew louder. One rider leaned forward in his saddle. "Bones don't talk, woman." She smiled then, not wide, not kind, the kind of smile you give an animal when you know which way it will run. The leader raised a hand. The laughter died. He studied her, something uneasy shifting behind his eyes. "We'll take what's left," he said. "You'll leave before sunrise. That's mercy." She looked past them at the flames, devouring her life piece by piece. She felt the old ache in her knuckles, the memory of fur and muscle and breath hot against her face, the weight of a blade in her hand, slick with blood that wasn't hers. "You already took everything," she said softly. "Now you're just standing here." The leader shrugged. "Then you won't mind if we finish it?" He nodded. 2 men dismounted and moved toward the house. That was when she moved. She did not reach for a gun. She did not shout a warning. She stepped sideways into the shadow cast by the burning barn and disappeared. "Hey," one man started, then stopped. The night swallowed sound strangely when fire ruled it. The widow moved low, fast, her bare feet finding familiar ground. She grabbed a fallen fence post, its end charred and sharp, and waited. The first bandit rounded the corner of the barn, torch in hand. He didn't see her until she was already there. The post went through his throat with a dull, final sound. She caught his body as it fell, easing it to the dirt like a lover. His torch dropped, sputtered, died. The second man shouted, "Too late." She took his knife from his belt as he turned, buried it under his ribs, felt his body stiffen, then go slack. She pulled the blade free and wiped it on his shirt without thinking. It was an old habit. By the time the others realized something was wrong, 2 of them were already dead, and the widow was gone again, moving through smoke and flame like something the fire itself had chosen to spare. "Spread out!" The leader yelled, fear cracking his voice. "She's hiding!" The widow crouched near the corral, heart steady, breath slow. She could hear them now, not just their voices, but their fear. Fear had a sound. It rushed. It stumbled. It made men loud when silence would have saved them. A horse screamed as fire caught its flank. The sound cut through the night, wild and terrible. One bandit ran to it, swearing. The widow rose behind him, looped her arm around his neck and pulled. She felt his windpipe collapse under her forearm. She held until he stopped moving, then lowered him gently, whispering nothing at all. 3 left. They backed together now, weapons out, eyes darting. The leader's bravado was gone, burned away with the barn. "She's a devil," one of them said. "I told you this place was cursed." The widow watched them from the darkness, knife in hand, blood drying on her skin. She thought of her husband's hands, rough and warm. She thought of the mountain, lion's breath on her face years ago, the moment she realized fear was just another thing that could be cut. She stepped into the firelight. They raised their guns. She stood still. "You should have left," she said. A shot rang out. Wood splintered behind her. She was already moving. She closed the distance in a heartbeat, knocked one gun aside, drove her knife into the shooter's thigh, then up under his ribs. He screamed. She twisted the blade and stepped away as he fell. The last two ran. She let them. The ranch burned behind her as she stood alone among the dead, smoke curling around her like a shroud. She watched the riders disappear into the dark, carrying terror with them like a brand. By dawn, nothing stood but ashes and her house, blackened but alive. She sat on the porch steps, cleaning her knife, listening to the mountain wake. They would talk. Men like that always did. They would tell stories of a widow in the hills, of fire that hunted back, of a woman who moved like a knife in the dark. And the mountains would listen. This was only the beginning. The mountains remembered her. They always did. Morning came slow and grey, dragging light across the burned bones of the ranch. Smoke still lifted from the ruins in thin, bitter threads, carrying the smell of ash, blood, and wet earth. The widow stood where the corral had been, watching crows circle with patient greed. She did not chase them away. Death fed many mouths. She had learned that long ago. She buried the men before noon. Not because they deserved it, but because leaving bodies to rot brought other things. Wolves, lawmen, questions. She worked in silence, using a shovel whose handle was scorched black, hands blistered but steady. Each grave was shallow, marked only by stones. She said no prayers. The earth did not need lies whispered into it. By the time the sun climbed high, the ranch was quiet again, too quiet. She walked the perimeter, counting what remained. The house still stood, though the windows were cracked and the roof smelled of smoke. The well had survived. The root cellar was intact. Her husband's old rifle lay where it had fallen by the door, untouched. She left it there. Inside, she packed only what mattered: dried meat, water, a blanket, a coil of rope, her whetstone, and the knife. The same knife she had carried for years, its handle worn to the shape of her grip. It had killed animals and men alike. It did not care which. She closed the door behind her and did not look back. The bandits who ran would not keep quiet. Fear loosened tongues, and fear, when fed, multiplied. She took the high trail into the mountains, moving where tracks were swallowed by stone and pine needles. Her pace was unhurried. She knew where they would go first. The river town 2 days' ride east, where whiskey flowed and men boasted to drown their shaking hands. From there, the story would spread: a widow, a burning ranch, men who never came back. By the second night, she heard them before she saw them. 3 riders camped in a narrow valley, their fire small and nervous. They spoke in low voices, glancing at the dark like it might move. One of them wore a bandage around his thigh, stained dark and crusted. He whimpered in his sleep. She watched from above, crouched on a ledge, the wind pulling her hair across her face. These were not the same men, different horses, different fear, but fear all the same. They say she didn't use a gun, one whispered. They say she cut them apart like animals. Shut up, another snapped. Just stories. No, the wounded man said, voice thin. My cousin rode with Calder. He's gone. All of them are gone. Silence fell heavy. The widow waited until the fire burned low and the talk died. She moved down slope like a shadow slipping off the mountain, careful, patient. When she reached the edge of the camp, she picked up a stone and tossed it into the brush across from them. A horse snorted. One man stood, hand on his pistol. Did you hear that? Another sound, closer this time. Behind them, panic bloomed fast. She struck the first man from the darkness, her knife flashing once, twice. He fell without a sound. The second fired blindly, the shot cracking the night open. She was already on him, driving him down, her knee on his chest, blade at his throat. Please, he gasped. She leaned close, her voice calm. Who sent you? He swallowed hard. Calder's brother. He's gathering men. Says no woman humiliates his blood. She nodded, as if confirming something she already knew. She stood and stepped away. The man scrambled back, sobbing, relief flooding his face. Then she threw the knife. It struck deep, clean. He fell backward into the fire, screams cut short by smoke and flame. The wounded man tried to crawl. She caught him by the ankle and dragged him into the open. He cried out, hands clawing at dirt. Tell Calder's brother, she said, crouching so he could see her face clearly. Tell him the mountains are not empty. She struck him once at the base of the skull. He went still. She left their camp burning. By the third day, riders hunted her, She felt them before she saw them. The pressure of eyes, the wrongness in the air. These men were quieter, better armed. They spread wide, cutting off trails, pushing her higher where the air thinned and the ground betrayed careless feet. Calder's brother was learning. She moved deeper into the peaks, into territory the old hunters respected. Cliffs that dropped without warning. Ravines where sound twisted. Places where mountain lions watched from ledges, yellow eyes unblinking. On the fourth night she slept in a cleft of rock, wrapped in her blanket, knife across her chest. She dreamed of fur and breath, of teeth flashing in moonlight, of her husband laughing as he sharpened a blade and told her she was too stubborn to die. At dawn the lion came. It was young, desperate, ribs showing through its coat. Hunger drove it closer to humans than it should have dared. It stalked her as she moved along a narrow ridge, its paws silent, tail twitching. She smelled it before she saw it. She stopped slowly and turned. The lion crouched, muscles coiling. She did not run. When it leaped, she stepped inside the arc of its body, arm raised, knife ready. The impact knocked her back, pain flaring as claws raked her shoulder. She felt warm blood spill. She ignored it. She drove the blade up, under the jaw, into the brain. The lion shuddered once and went limp against her. She pushed the body away and stood, breathing hard, blood soaking her sleeve. She pressed her forehead to the rock and closed her eyes until the shaking passed. The mountains watched and said nothing. That afternoon the hunters closed in. Shots echoed through the peaks. Stone chipped near her head. She dropped, rolled, vanished into brush. They were careful now, moving slow, calling to each other in short, sharp bursts. She took two before sunset, one with a rock dropped from above, another with her knife in a narrow pass where only one man could walk at a time. But there were too many. By nightfall she was wounded, tired, her shoulder stiff and burning. She climbed anyway, forcing her body higher, toward the old mining tunnel she remembered from years ago. She slipped inside one just as torches flared below. The tunnel swallowed light and sound. She moved by memory, fingers brushing stone, counting steps. At a bend she stopped and waited. Men entered, torches bobbing, voices echoing. She struck like she always did, fast, close, merciless. When the last torch fell and went out, the tunnel was silent again. She leaned against the wall, chest heaving, blood dripping to the dirt. She pressed her hand to her wound and laughed softly, a sound edged with pain and iron. Calder's brother would not stop. Men like him never did. Good. She pushed herself upright and stepped deeper into the mountain, carrying death with her like a promise.